You guessed it, another dating show and a whole lot of lighting setups, so let's dive in. So I'm going to do something a little bit different for this breakdown. I just got Fuji's new GFX 100, the second, so I figured it'd be a great opportunity to tell the story through photos. It starts with our location, which is another swanky mansion up in the hills, and since we're in the dead of winter, our available window for usable daylight is much shorter, meaning that we had to develop two different approaches for day as well as night because we were filming 2 episodes per day, and we ended up being in the dead of night halfway through our second episode. Luckily, we were backlit for most of the day, so the only thing that we really had to worry about was bringing in the right amount of fill for each of the setups and let the sun do most of the heavy lifting. We shot our host intro later in the day, which put the sun in a great position to set up an 8x light grid as our primary key and an M40 with a little bit of CTO behind Talent as a warmer hair light. I was able to slide in a 4x8 balance right under their frame, and our director had Talent do a short walk towards camera. And by the time she landed at her 2, we were well past our diffused light, so I also threw up the new 2400B through a frame of 250 to extend our key, rather than having the grips move our entire frame and shortening our move. For fill, we used a 12x solid to kill a lot of the ambient levels coming from the sky and increase contrast. It was a pretty simple setup. Again, the sun did most of the heavy lifting, and we just augmented with a few punchy sources. Our first scene has both our talent meeting each other on sort of a blind date, and we riffed off what we did in the previous season with 2 stronger sources as our far side key, as well as softer frontal sources as our fill, and I knew we needed really strong fixtures since we're shooting directly into a window. Rigging these is always a bit tricky, but we noticed this lip in the ceiling during our scout, and after mentioning it to my key grip, we ended up sliding 2 pieces of speed rail in between each of the lips and building our own sort of grid to hang some of our fixtures off of. We used 2 Nanlux 1200Bs with medium chimeras, and our fill lights were 3 Dyno 1200s set on a 20-foot ladder truss. I love using these panels because they have a really wide spread, and they're also brighter than a SkyPanel 360, which is pretty insane. So we have more than enough output to shoot against the sun, as well as a really soft quality without needing any additional modifiers. We tried to keep a 2-to-1 ratio throughout, so we're not really pushing a ton of contrast, and there were times where the city haze would be pretty intense, so I would rate our wide shot at 1600 EI, but all other cameras were set to base ISO at 800. Public enemy number 1 were the reflections in the window, which were almost unavoidable, and rather than hanging up a teaser, which might have shown up in our shot, we did the next simpler option, which was to just open the massive sliding doors. And again, we had plenty of overhead with the dynos to light against those massive highlights. Our jacuzzi scene is a 2-person interview, and during the day, our sun was placed directly behind them, which gave us a perfect kind of backlight and sort of became our key as talent faced each other. The sun was a little bit harsher than I'd like, but we couldn't really do much in terms of shape because 1, we're backlit, and 2, the sun's angle is only ever 30 degrees off the horizon since we're in the middle of December. As our fill, we essentially used a 4x8 full soft frost, which was really an 8x8 frame with half soft frost folded in on itself, so we could shoot through the bottom half for our Master 2 shot. We used an 8x frame because that was in play for a lot of our other setups, and it was a much easier option recycling that frame rather than setting up 2 extra stands with 2 extra 4x frames. As we fell into night, I changed our approach slightly by warming up our fixtures as the sun went down. To me, tungsten instinctively feels a lot more nighttimey, and I wanted to lean into a lot of those warmer tones as it got dark, which also allowed us to balance the cameras to a lower color temperature and give the city background a really kind of beautiful, cooler ambience. I decided to go with 2 5K pars to spread across a 12x bleached muslin for that really clean, white, and soft quality. Rather than using base 800 ISO, I set all the cameras to high base 4000 and rated downward at 2000 EI for a much cleaner image and to also let a lot more of the ambient city light hit the sensor. The higher base ISO helped a lot since we didn't need a ton of output and we could prioritize achieving a much softer quality of light. Shooting through muslin usually produces a really soft quality, but it also eats up a lot of the output But again, I knew we didn't need a lot of intensity at the higher base. For a lot of our night work, we use these stippled lenses to get a really wide and even spread across the frame. And I love using actual tungsten sources when I can because of how perfectly they render skin tones. They're just kind of a huge pain when you're dealing with power, when you're on location jobs, but luckily we had enough to run these bigger units. Really quick, I want to give a huge shout out to all of our ACs. Without them, the camera department would have just literally disintegrated, and it's no easy feat managing 5 different cameras. And one of the ways that I help keep things organized on my end is actually with the sponsor of today's video, Cordbag. Cordbag makes really high quality storage and organizational tools, and I truly mean it when I say that these are some of my essential pieces of kit. These little pouches make it super easy to keep your gear organized and easy to find, so I literally bring at least one to every job that I'm on, whether it's for camera media, smaller batteries, or even hard drives to offload to. They're crazy functional and have a Velcro strip right on the front, so you can use your own labels or patches, a tactical hook so you can clip it to just about anything, and PALS webbing on the back so you can use it just like any other MOLLE accessory. Another great hidden little feature is the little AirTag pocket hidden right inside the mesh zipper, so you can keep track of all your high value pouches. They also make great gifts for your filmmaker friends, and I know firsthand just how difficult we can be to shop for. And I'm the type of person that would probably just keep a few for myself. So if you're still shopping around for a few gift ideas, Cordbag is offering 1 free set of patches for any order over $150, 2 free patches for orders over $250, and you can even get all 3 sets when you spend over $350. Additionally, if you use my code IsThatARed on checkout, you can get an extra 15% off your entire order. So get organized, check out Cordbag. So really quick, I want to take a quick detour and mention the lenses that we use for our Steadicam A camera, which were actually the Laowa Rangers because they have a great range, they're super light, and also cover large format. I thought they did a pretty good job with matching with all of our other E-mount glass, and just from looking at the monitor, and our main working stop was around a 4 to a 5.6, which is where I think this lens has the best performance, and we only ever opened up to a 2.9 during some of the night segments. We were constantly changing focal lengths for our talent hero shots, and having a parfocal zoom is pretty much a requirement so that our focus puller isn't constantly having to adjust focus on the fly. 28mm on full frame was easily able to capture all 3 talent during specific segments, and the Rangers also have a really great minimum focus for a zoom lens at just over 1.5 feet. I'll have a more detailed look at these lenses in a future video, but I thought it was worth mentioning here. One activity had our talent chipping away at a huge block of ice, and we went with a similar approach to our hot tub segment by sending 2 M40s through a full 8x frame of half soft frost. Our host was kind of set off to the side, handing out different tools, so we used the 2400 through another 4x frame to give that area a bunch of lift. We didn't really change much for our night version. We ended up striking 1 M40 and adding half CTO to warm up the light, which also helped shave off a lot of intensity to help match with the twilight in the background. We bounced our 2400 off a 12x Muzz, and it was obviously very easy to just warm it up and match to our HMI. We had 2 confessionals running concurrently this time around, and since half of our day fell into night, we decided to go for a steady daytime look that had the same high-key, kind of airy vibe, similar to what we've done in the past. Our key was a Forza 720 with a 3-foot Octa, and that was armed out just over talent with a shiny bounce right under as our fill. In Confessional 1, we had another 720 coming through a door with a splash of daylight, as well as another bouncing off a sheet of muslin that was kind of draped over a bedroom TV. In Confessional 2, we set up our own version of a buff bounce, which I was actually turned on by Lewis Potts, and is essentially a bounce with multiple colored fabrics to better emulate natural light. We used a lot of blues and pinks, as well as a little bit of red and orange, and we had it tinted off so that the sun wouldn't affect our window throughout the day. It gave us a kind of really colorful dusk look, and it was consistent throughout the whole day. And the last thing we did was skip a LED dado off the floor to give a little bit of texture on the background wall. It's great having the ability to have all kinds of different tools available to kind of craft our look, as well as an amazing crew that's incredibly easy to work with. The new 2400B was great having on set working in conjunction with the M40s, and I think having both options in tandem is a very, very powerful combination. Oftentimes we would start with M40s as our kind of base layer, and then fly in a 2400 to extend our spread. And there were several times where they would work alongside one another with no discernible differences, and other times we would set an M40 as our constant and the 2400 as our second unit, and then as we lost our daylight throughout a shot, we were able to slowly lower the intensity on the Nanlux through the wireless TMX and CRMX, which was super handy. I think the standard reflectors are great options for when you're using frames, and I'm really keen on using their new Fresnel that softens up the light quality a little bit while still having that massive punch. We were fortunate enough to have SetDog Winnie with us on set, and as adorable as this picture is, what's equally, if not more impressive, is the fact that she's able to have both paws on top of the fixture while it's running at 100% intensity. I'm really looking forward to seeing this unit show up more and more at rental houses, because honestly, it would have been great to have two of these units working together, especially for that transitional period as it got dark. We could have changed both our intensity and color temp on the fly to better match the ambient levels. Now, I don't know that I'll ever necessarily phase out HMIs entirely, but all the benefits of high-powered LEDs make it a pretty damn good option. If you want to see more of why I think the 2400B is such a game changer, check out this video. I promise it's a good one.